Good evening and welcome to the Hartford Board of School Directors meeting for Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 6 o'clock on the dot. I'm Katie Sutton. I'm the superintendent of the Hartford School District, and before the board appoints a chair, I will be facilitating the meeting. First, I'm going to ask if there are any changes or additions to the agenda.
Yes. I would like to propose adding an executive session under 1 VSA 313 to discuss labor relations agreements with employees.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Okay, we will add an executive session after the consent agenda on the agenda. Next, we're going to move to governance process. And we're first going to start with the nomination of the board chair as a part of the reorganization of the board. Do I have a nomination for board chair?
I would like to nominate Nancy Russell.
Is there a second?
Second?
Is there any discussion? Are we ready to call the vote? All those in favor of the nomination of Nancy Russell as board chair, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? So moved, and I'm going to hand it over to Nancy Russell as board chair.
Thank you very much, Katie. The second nomination that we need to do, and for the ones that are not familiar with the way that we're doing this, this is the way that it is required that we start our first meeting after all the elections have taken place for board members. So we have nominations for board clerk. Do I have any nominations for the board clerk?
I would like to nominate Cathy Lemire.
Second.
Second.
Do we have any other nominations? Okay, are we ready to call for the vote? And all in favor of having Cathy Lemire as the board chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries. Congratulations. What did I say? Chair. Oh, see, I was trying to slip it in there. My apologies. It's board clerk. Okay, we want to welcome some new board members. So we have two new board members that are beginning their reign with us tonight, and I'm going to start at the end of this table. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to you and give a quick minute or two about themselves and why they wanted to serve on the board. Okay? Go for it, Daniel.
Hi, I'm Daniel Shapira. I am the parent of two students in the district. I, like many people in this community, saw the news reports of how our state's fourth graders' reading scores tumbled below the national average, while we were spending twice as much as Mississippi. And that showed me that the skills and experience that I have from corporate America of using data, of accountability, of high expectations, is something that could be of value to this community, and I decided to serve. And I thank you for your votes.
Thanks.
I'm Colin Butler, and I'm just going to give you my three-point elevator spiel that I've used yesterday about 700 times, fresh in my mind. I've really got three main objectives in sitting on this board. One is to encourage the board to be as transparent as possible in all of its activities. I'll leave it at that. I think you probably know that that I've been sitting at the board meetings since last February. The second issue of importance for me is advocacy. There's a lot going on at the state level with figuring out how to implement Act 73 and whatever else is coming along. And I'm very concerned that nobody has demonstrated to us what the savings might be or what the educational benefit might be to doing large-scale consolidations. And I want our board to be more involved, testifying before committees in the legislature in Montpelier, and also in bringing back news of the consolidation efforts to Hartford's voters so that the folks in town have an idea of what's going on. And the third thing is, and this is just picking up on what Daniel just shared with you, I've been looking at the state test scores and was kind of excited when they released the latest year's results, I guess probably 2 weeks ago now, and started to look at those numbers. And they're continuing to be exceptionally poor. I don't always trust standardized testing and the scores that the testing yields, but I think it's a place to start, and we need to be paying attention to what's happening. I think right now, a very large percentage of the students in Hartford are reading and doing math, English and math, at levels below proficient. And I think as a board, we need to put that at the top of the list of things that we work on this year to try to understand what's going on, whether those statistics are accurate, what else we can use to measure the district's performance, and then what steps need to be taken. How do we support the superintendent in whatever efforts she has underway to improve the performance of our district? Thanks.
Thank you very much. On the agenda, it says the oath of office for newly elected board directors. Each of our board directors went to the town office today and took their oath and signed their oath. So we won't actually be doing that part of it right here because they've already taken care of that. Next on our agenda is the status of the ECAA PCB work process. Director of Facilities is Jonathan Garthwaite. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Is that going to work all right? You can leave it down like that. That work? All right. Welcome to new members. One feels not so new, but I'm with that.
Have you been here for a while?
Talking about the ECA process, when I was speaking with Caty earlier this week, she suggested it might be a good idea, given new folks, and just kind of a refresher to talk about kind of general facilities overview projects, bond-funded projects, and how the PCB process kind of wraps into that. So I'll start with facilities, just kind of a quick overview. This is not news to probably anybody, but I'm just getting it out there. You know, our facilities work is really broken into two primary things. There's daily operations, you know, daily, weekly, monthly operations of the facilities, and then these projects. Here, for these last years, the projects have been a heavy lift with everything going on, and I think I want to start all of this by making sure to thank the folks that we have, the custodial and maintenance folks that we have. We have been, you know, I've been here a little over 4 years, we've never been fully staffed. Between a combination of understandable budget cuts, attrition, a very difficult hiring environment, we have some folks who stuck it out with us through thick and thin, quite literally. They're the people who set this room up and clean it when we're done and make sure the heat works. And I want to make sure everybody knows they're out there. And I appreciate that. We all should. You know, even fully staffed, we're thin. We, on the upside, We are advertising, hopefully hiring soon for another custodian, another maintenance person, and a master electrician to deal with some of the outstanding electrical life safety issues that we've been struggling with. That's all in the works. So I just wanted to start with that because that's what we do every day, and it really is what should occupy most of my time, but does not. So I am grateful for those folks. The other piece of general operations is just facilities conditions. This is beyond capital projects, beyond the bonds, just what we deal with day in and day out. The reality is we do have some older facilities. We do have a lot of deferred maintenance that doesn't rise to the level of a capital expenditure or a bond-funded activity, but can in aggregate be daunting. Some of you have taken tours with me and seen the conditions of our buildings. I'm not saying the sky is falling, but it's cloudy. And I would invite new members to one or two at a time if you would like to walk through facilities and see what we have and ask questions on the ground. I'd be happy to make time to do that. This is the stuff that, the general support services for programs. This is the window shades and the whiteboards and the paint in the elevator lobbies and the things that really add up. It is my respectful opinion that we, capital W, we have not necessarily kept up with what's required to keep up with what we have. We've got about 500,000 square feet of real estate. That's a lot. So I guess I would just say, tours, information to new members, we're struggling, and I'm grateful for the people who are doing that work and would like to offer the opportunity for you to see that. On to projects, I'm going to move pretty quickly. So on to projects, we have dozens of operational projects going all the time. Everything from, replacing system components, the circulator pump in the lobby of this building that took far too long to fix, and they're finally comfortably warm, to, emergency lighting systems that are something just broke somewhere. We always have operational projects underway. Those also include requests for support, moving people, rearranging things, building things, putting things up that are kind of the warp and weave of what we do. And then the big thing everybody always wants to hear about is the bond projects. Jacob and I met and talked about this a little bit today, and my goal after our conversation is to kind of clean up my notes and add to the information on the website with a status report. We have the initial kind of explanation of relevant, expenses that would be relevant to the bond. We worked on updating the numbers, and I can plug in the progress and post for public consumption just the status of bond-funded projects. I wanted to speak a little bit about the explanation of the process of how those bond-funded projects are queued up and built in. We've taken kind of a worst first approach, dealing with the greatest life safety and security issues first, followed by the biggest facilities liabilities. And so where that has landed us is working on, we replaced, to date, we've replaced the fire alarm system at Dothan Brook. We've replaced exterior doors at a couple different locations. We started the roofing project, did a partial roof replacement at Ottaquechee last summer. We're going to finish that this summer. And it really is just a reality that even in the short time that has elapsed since the inception and the first conversations about that bond until today, $1's not worth $1 anymore. So we're trying to be very careful and very strategic in how we move through those projects. So what I'm going to do for the purposes of this quick update is just run through the current state at each school, where we're at real quickly. And then I have a couple that I would like to share with you specifically that have some impact and some importance, outside of the norm. So moving quickly through this, as I said, White River Elementary School, we've done a bunch of exterior doors. We replaced the main entry doors this winter. We've replaced one of the end doors, working on one of the rear doors, replaced the sprinkler system. We have a paving project planned there for this summer. The specs are done, the RFP went out. We're getting proposals this week for that. as well as the roof on that building. The only part that won't be replaced is the cafeteria roof that was done some years ago and is still in good shape. We are working on specifications for heating upgrade in that facility. That is not critical, but we would like to address it before it is. We're replacing the dividing doors between the gym and the auditorium in both Ottaquechee and Dothan Brook. Any of you who use those facilities will appreciate how long overdue that is. Come back to the high school. At the middle school, we are in the process right now of finally replacing the elevator controls. Some of you who have been here for a while, I've been talking about that. I personally am very grateful that I will be able to stop carrying sandpaper and needle nose pliers in my truck at all times, because we will have updated electronic controls, and I won't have to bend springs and file points anymore to make it work. That's underway, should be done in the next week. We're also we're through final planning, replanning, in fact, for the chimney replacement to be done next summer. And we're down to 2 entities who are very interested in that. And we're basically working out the details about how to manage that project. Ottaquechee, finishing the roof down there. Last summer, we did a major drainage project on the north end and finally got the water that has been flowing under that building to flow around it, which is overdue since construction. That freed us up to start replacing doors where the concrete had been heaving probably since construction. That was a big one to get done, and that went really well. Also the gym dividers there, and also parking there. Trying to where we can group these projects to if we're going to have big impact like that, let's do it and then give the schools back. So that's kind of why you're seeing some of those big ones right now, plus the fact that they're just very planning intensive projects to execute. I should add both Ottaquechee and Dothan Brook, we did do tank inspections this year, the underground storage tanks, which were both original to construction. Those were a concern to me because of the liability associated with underground storage of number 2 fuel. Fortunately, both of those came back and passed with flying colors. We have no need to address them in the foreseeable future, which is great. White River Elementary, let's talk about that. We also have a paving project there. Any of you who've driven behind White River Elementary appreciate the lunar landscape that needs to be corrected. And then we also, at White River Elementary, had a situation evolve this year where we learned through a series of events and investigations that we need to replace the entire sprinkler system in that building. And could you, there's just a very brief snapshot slide about White River Elementary School. Yeah. So this is the summer of White River Elementary. I just wanted to put this up there as an example of the financial and kind of operational impact. To do that sprinkler system, the initial estimates is about $1.2 million. That is based on the square footage of the building and the cost for the mechanical installation, retrofit of a sprinkler system, as well as all the enabling projects, taking down the ceilings, patch paint, all of that stuff that has to happen, as well as an acknowledgement that it will trigger a number of other life safety, emergency lighting, exit lighting that we'll have to upgrade at the same time. That project will be full-time, probably 6 days a week all summer at that school. It's a big one. I made a note later, but I'll just say it now. I try not to spend a whole lot of time talking about history, and I have no interest in blame other than to move forward in a way that doesn't repeat the past. So this sprinkler system there has been modified over and over and over, and has gotten to the point where we just can't work with it anymore. So the reason I put this up there is for your consideration. $1.2 million on a sprinkler system. The paving is a little north of $500,000 because of the condition. We basically have to take it all up, box it down 30 inches, replace the fill, replace some drainage structures. And then just a quick review of what's on my desk is what I call operational projects, meaning replacing the shower in the nurse's office, replacing the washer and dryer hookup, shades, all that stuff. Adds up to about $40,000. So I put this up here just for context. We're talking this summer spending close to $2 million at that school. And do with that what you will. It gave me pause to just consider, that's a big investment in a facility and something I just wanted to call out for all of you to think about. I'm going to proceed with this work unless somebody says otherwise. It's all important work. We will do all this and have exactly the school we have today. That's White River. Moving to the high school, we learned over the course of the last year that we had some issues related to our emissions, emissions from the boilers there. And in response to those concerns, we engaged an engineering firm that is specific to that field of study, who came in and looked at all our equipment with an eye towards getting us to both installation and operational compliance with all relevant regulations. In the course of that investigation, we learned that our green wood chip boiler just needs to go. It has not functioned adequately, correctly, and without significant investment in a very long time. This year, it had so many problems, starting with just making the bunker work to get chips into it, and ending with I'll just say it plainly, the way the gases are exhausted from that boiler defy regulation. We just cannot continue to do that. So what that led to was a consideration of replacing that green wood chip boiler. And that's, if you could put that boiler options page up. What I did is I engaged with Du Bois & King to look at our options for that boiler. And I said, I want to look at propane, oil, and at least one biofuel option. The reason I bring this to your attention is not just it's a large cost, but also there's a certain sensitivity to how we heat our buildings. And I won't say I want your blessing, but I want you to be aware of how we plan to proceed. The engineers did exactly what I asked. They looked at the options for gas, oil, and wood pellets were the best technology available. I asked them to estimate the installation cost. Now, please be aware that's the installation cost just of the boiler equipment. That doesn't include tearing off the wood chip bunker and fixing the facade. That doesn't include repiping the expansion tanks in the ceiling of that boiler room. Not to get too deep in the weeds, are original to the building and look at. If you would like to go in there at some time and look at that with me, I'd be happy to show you. So this is a project that is in development very, very quickly. We ran all winter on one boiler and we send kids home one day. I want to get this done this summer. The best option that the engineers have is to take out that green wood chip boiler and replace it with two redundant number 2 oil boilers alongside operating in sequence with the existing number 2 boiler that we have in place. That is the least expensive option in terms of installation cost for that equipment, and it is right in the middle of the annual operating cost for this equipment. Unless there's some strong feeling that we not proceed that way, that's how I'm going to proceed, because that's how the engineers, that's the best option they've given us. I bring this up because it's a big expense that will come out of the bond. We did include money for this is the kind of thing the bond was for. It's going to be over $1 million, and it means that we are adding 2 number 2 boilers to our building for the foreseeable future. So if that prompts a decision point for you all, let me know. But I need to move on some of these things. They're happening quickly. Where we're at in that process is I have a phone call with the engineers later this week, and I'm going to cut them loose on the final design. We've already started talking with a couple different entities about how to run this as a construction management project as opposed to a more traditional general contractor project, just because we don't have time. And that's the best way to protect our interest, is by doing it with a CM model. but it's gonna have to happen pretty quickly. So putting this out there for the record so you all are aware, if you get a call in a year and somebody says, how come we have so much number 2 fuel use in the district, this is why. So moving on to the rest of the high school, we have bond-funded projects that are impacted by PCBs. This is my segue into PCBs. They are all obviously at the high school. Those include the work on upgrading the theater. There's a variety of things that must be done in there. Initial estimates are around $500,000. There's architectural compliance issues over the years. The building has been modified. It's things like stairwells and elevator lobbies and doors that open the wrong way, that when we had the fire marshal over the past 3 years do their tour of the facility, said, you gotta fix this stuff. It has to be code compliant. If you pull a fire alarm, the doors have to open the right way. You have to have the right smoke separation for your stairwells. It's pretty basic stuff, but there's over $400,000 worth of it. The entire sprinkler system for this building, needs to be replaced. Right now, we have no sprinklers in the auditorium. That's why we're limited. It's one of the reasons we're limited to 240 seats. We have no sprinklers in the gym. That is complicated by the reality that we don't currently have enough water running to the building to fully sprinkle the building. The solution to that is to look to our neighbors to the north and run a water line right down the middle of the street from the nearest hydrant and have another water service to the building. That's a big one. That initial estimates on that are about just north of 2.2 million complete. This building needs a new fire alarm system. Based on the square footage and current market assessments, that is just north of $1 million system. The system at Dothan Brook was 200 and, Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, 235,000, just for comparison. That needs to be done as well. And then we have the north stairs here that are headed for Jeremy's house. And we have a stormwater system problem to address. It's just old and needs to be fixed. Those are not directly tied to PCBs in that there's no specific touch point, other than if we are going to at some point do a major project in this facility, we should do it all at once to minimize the program impact and to realize the most both effective mobilization execution and the most efficient use of funds. We try to group these projects to the best of our ability. To put this in perspective, the work that I described in the other schools right now for this purpose, and I'll clean this up and send it to all of you and post it online. For this purpose, and I'm not going to look at Jacob when I say this, I grouped the expenses instead of having estimated, encumbered, or spent. I'm just calling them encumbered. It's money we either have spent or know we have to. So for this exercise, that first group that I talked about at Ottaquiche, White River, all of this, it adds up to about $9,020,000 worth of work. The work that I just described, and some of that we've already done. We've already spent. We've already spent about, this I will ask Jacob, about 900,000.
Just under $1 million.
Yeah, just under $1 million already spent. So of that number, that's already spent. A good portion of that is encumbered with purchase orders in place. The rest is based on estimates and progress. The work that I just described in this facility, whether it be stormwater and stairs or the items that are deferred, initial estimates, that adds up to just under $10 million. So adding those up, as I did right before this meeting, we're looking at my term encumbered funds in that bond of about $19 million. So I am motivated by the market to make this happen as quickly as possible. That's why I throw these slides up and say, tell me if I shouldn't be rolling. Because this is, I say it all the time, but nothing's ever as inexpensive as it is tomorrow morning. So it's a big push, and it's a big heavy lift, and I just, if I'll put this together, I'll clean it up with Jacob, make sure the numbers are exactly where they need to be and post it, but if any of you have specific questions, or anybody who's listening interested, happy to, full disclosure, I will share estimates, engineering details. I'm not gonna put it all up here and take the whole night, but it's all available. There's no smoke and mirrors here. Hopefully there's no smoke. So this is, we're rolling. We have a $21 million bond, and I just described $19 million worth of work. That does not include all the operational stuff I told you about, the flooring, the painting, the whiteboards, the broken doors, all the stuff we do every day. So since we just talked about projects impacted by PCBs, we'll talk about PCBs. The current state is we are waiting for the development of the ECA, which is the Evaluation of Corrective Action Alternatives. I spoke with Rob Montgomery from Fuss & O'Neill this evening, right before I came in, and said, I am going to hold you to this, and we will see that by the middle of April for review by this group. That ECA is the document that takes into account the PCBs that are in this building and provides options as to how it is addressed. A lot of you know this. We've talked about this many times. It is a key and crucial moment when you all decide how we proceed. For me, ironically, that's when it gets easier, because then it's just another construction project. But it's a pretty big moment. And I think, what I'll try to do is get that document to you with as much detail and background information as we can muster. But it's a big one. This is the biggest decision point in the process. Once a decision is made about how to proceed, we've talked about additional sampling in this area and other parts of the building. We've not spent that money, again, that kind of, I won't go through my 4 points, but one of them being financial stewardship. I'm not going to spend any of the district's money unless we have to. If the board makes the decision to do abatement that involves demolition, we will very quickly move towards sampling the rest of the building so that we don't, A, leave anything behind, or B, pay for disposal of materials that are not toxic. So at that point, it becomes very relevant. I'm just not going to spend money with a shotgun blast. I'd much rather be very targeted. So that process will happen. We have a meeting next Tuesday, I think, with the DEC. Mm-hmm. One of the things that will be discussed there is the DEC's desire to put air purifying units in this building. I won't speak, you can all read all about that stuff. I think really the decision point there, and we can talk about this next Tuesday, is that's not a regulatory requirement. Quarterly air sampling is required. We have a letter from the DEC saying you will do this to operate the building, and you will take appropriate actions based on those results. We've done that. We've moved people out, we've moved people in. The APUs are not a regulatory requirement. It's something that they would like to try. So the distinction there is they will tell us you'll get reimbursed for what is required this testing. The APU units, one could argue, if they wish to do that and it's not a regulatory requirement, great, but I'm not sure that the district needs to pay for it if it is already out of funds that they have at their discretion. But I think that's the conversation on Tuesday, just keeping that whole. If the group decides to do that, we'll make that happen. So that's kind of the APU question. The ongoing air sampling is how we're dealing with the here and now. The ECA charts the path forward, and that's really the big one here. You're all going to have to sit with that. I'm going to bring in Rob Montgomery from Fuss & O'Neill to this meeting after you've all had a chance to look at it and maybe ask some questions. We'll bring him in to talk through the options, because ultimately whatever option you decide to do, that consultant will then devise a work plan that will be submitted to the state for approval. So if you decide to do demolition abatement, they'll come up with a work plan. If you decide to leave the stuff in place and do air sampling forever, they'll come up with a work plan. They're going to do, the process is Fuss and O'Neill works for the district. The DEC approves the work they do. But at the end of the day, their invoices come to the district, so they have to operate as you all see fit. So I want to just, put that out there so when you see it coming. The last thing I wanted, a couple real quick things, just not for nothing, the Monsanto legal action that's underway. I had the pleasure of spending 7.5 hours yesterday in deposition with Monsanto's attorneys. And that was for me, my thinking driving home last night was it forced me to consider the factors and the implications and the process to date. To sit and have to read through the emails I've written to some of you over the past 3 years kind of makes it very, very current. And so I would just say that, I'd say that again, because I think if we're into the depositions, they're going to start talking about settlements or going to trial, but to the degree that the board is involved in that, I think this is a very important time to be involved in that, in whatever way that involvement needs to happen. So the last thing I would say, one is, we're dealing with facilities that are not new, and we're dealing with facilities that have not necessarily been maintained as we would have liked them to. I will say again that while the history is interesting, it's really only useful for context and a cautionary tale. For me, I could look at this as, there's no value in responsibility for how we got there as long as we all share the responsibility how we move forward with the repairs, the fix, the next steps. In keeping with that, again, I reiterate, anybody who wants a tour, anybody who wants information, I'm not hard to find. I will say again, because it's getting out there, facilities questions at hartfordschools.net is an email set up specifically for facilities questions. It's even on my phone. Send me a note if you have a question about anything. 359-4610 rings at my desk. Call me. I do not want to make these decisions in a vacuum, and I want to make sure the process is incredibly transparent. So for any of you. And then the last piece, because this is always on my mind, is I would just, and I'm sure you do, as I go through all this work every day, I'm always thinking about the context of our facilities, the condition, the planning, the process, the goals in the context of Act 73, and how we are positioned, how we look, how we, what the not just the asset value, but the program value and the value in place of these facilities and this district in aggregate. So, that's on my mind all the time. I'm sure it's on all of your minds, but this all plays into it. So if any of what I discussed tonight resonates in that context, again, we walked through White River, Jeremy and I walked through White River Elementary some months ago, and one of the conversations we had was, what's the impression people get when they walk in the door? We can do something about that impression. We can control that impression. We just need to put the horsepower in place to get it done. So, thanks. Questions?
Question. When we're talking about looking at these options, and because you've talked about that we were going to have to make this decision
Yep.
at some point, can you give me a guesstimate on the time frame that we need to have meetings and we need to discuss it as soon as we get all the information
For the
from you?
ECAA?
Yes.
15, 20 minutes. No, no,
Now.
I think, so the conversation has been back and forth for some period of time, as you know.
Right.
I won't say anybody's been dragging their feet, but it has not been a limber, full speed ahead process.
Right.
My call tonight was to confirm, by phone, we're really talking about the middle of April. We're not talking about the middle of next month, it might not be April. So I think as far as a time frame, that is largely up to you. But again, the context is important. When you make a decision on how we are going to proceed, how the district is going to proceed, that is going to trigger the next round of depositions and conversations related to the suit, because that's when the rubber meets the road, right? I think it's safe to say that you have all said, or they have all said, so you have all said, over and over that, your primary goal is to get these things out of here, right? And that's, I'm going to follow that lead until some other directive is made. It's safe to say that might not be Monsanto's primary goal. And so there's going to be some negotiation about where that lands. So I think there's an interest in your decision being both timely and rock solid. So it's a little bit of take your time and hurry up. I'm going to try to get you this stuff as early as possible, as soon as I can. And again, it's just going to go out to all of you. My suggestion would be that there be some period of review. And if there is some process that wants to be set up to have kind of, construction guy's going to call it an RFI, request for information, where you want, clarification of any point. What does it mean to do this, or what does it mean to do that? We try to organize that process quickly so the whole group is informed by an individual's question. That makes sense? And then how you all discuss it and come to it is a function of your availability and time. I think that it would be ideal if we could come up with at least a preliminary statement within a month of receiving that information. And it's dense.
Yeah, I was thinking sooner than that, so,
Great.
Yeah, I think we could call a special meeting after receiving the results and reviewing them.
right. That's what I was thinking too.
If I may make a point, that ECA is, it's put together by, in our case, Fuss O'Neill, whatever environmental contract, that's who we're using, and they're good at what they do. One of the very important points in there is they are required by the state to provide cost estimates for each option. Now, keep in mind, those are cost estimates by an environmental contractor. That's not,
Right.
we've not put that out to bid. That's to put it in perspective, the numbers that I gave you on those boilers, I made it very clear that's the cost of the boiler in place. That doesn't include all the work around it, right? So when they talk about cost of abatement is X, what they're talking about is to have abatement contractor ABC lift this podium up and bring it outside. They're not talking about disconnecting the microphone, replacing the carpet, moving the class to another location for 6 months while you do it. So there are some questions to ask about the implications of each piece. I do not know what the options will be. I think you can look at what other schools have done and get a general sense. But there's consideration of initial cost and ongoing cost. And I think those are the questions that are going to be, I will always come back to a dollar's never worth more than it is tomorrow.
Yep.
And, we've talked before at length about not kicking any cans down the road. So
Absolutely.
there's going to be a lot to consider.
Jonathan, I've got a couple of questions and an observation. I'll give you the observation first, just to put you in a bad frame of mind. I stood outside yesterday in front of the polling place for just about 10 hours. I skipped off home to
How's
defrost.
it been today?
No, yeah, exactly. I was flabbergasted at the number of people who took the opportunity to ask me in somewhat saltier language than I'm going to say to you, what the hell's going on with this bond issue? What are we doing? There were questions about the roofs at Dothan Brook and Ottaquechee, the drainage project at Ottaquechee. I tried to give them a little bit of an answer based on what I've heard sitting in this room, but I didn't begin to answer their questions, really. The observation is, whatever it is you're doing that puts information out on the website or in the newsletters or wherever it's being put is not adequate. You really, really need to put some effort into communicating to the public what it is that's going on or going to be going on. I think after hearing about the projects that you identified this evening, that's even more important, that you really need to get people geared up to be hearing those sorts of numbers for those types of projects.
So, yeah.
I've got a couple questions, but if you want to respond to that.
No, I hear you. You're absolutely right. And I think, what Jacob and I talked about earlier is getting the information I just shared with you organized and posted on the website. That's good as far as it goes. You all obviously would be copied on all that communication. Other than that, what avenue would you suggest, or would you like to see explored for getting that out there?
I guess my own reaction is, put it on the website,
Yep.
do it with a fair amount of detail so people have enough information to understand what's happening, and then put hints on the listserv, on Facebook, on whatever social media that the district uses, in the district's newsletters that go home at the school level and the district level, sending them back to the website so that they can find the detail that they're looking for there. I don't know how else to do it. I'm not a media person.
No, neither am
by any
I.
stretch.
I can tell you, I'm certainly not putting it on Facebook.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
No.
I'm an advocate for improving the website. We know that the website needs improvement. But anywhere that it sparks debate, whether it's the listserv or Facebook, I'm very cautious to put it out there. It would be to the point where I would be willing to throw out a link and then quickly sign off and never sign in again. Just
That's
from
exactly what I'm running.
from the Facebook warriors and
Yeah.
and all that. I'm willing to say that we've known this since the last year, as long as I've been here, is that the website needs work. Yeah. Go ahead, John. But that served its purpose for the committees have to end.
They never started, so.
Okay.
Can I just circle
Yeah.
back to
No.
your question? So I'll do what I said I would do as quickly as possible. I'll work with Jacob. We'll get that together. We'll put that on these other avenues. I'm looking around, putting it in newsletters. That's not really my wheelhouse. Your point is well made and understood, but I'm not the one to do that. I'll make sure the information is accessible and how it gets dispersed.
I have a hunch that very few people in the district, especially people who don't have kids in school, look at that website. So you've got to do something that gets them to the website.
Yeah, understood. I'm not sure I'm the one to do that.
No, I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
My two questions are, you've got a limited amount of time to spend the bond money
Yes.
before it disappears, goes back to wherever it came from, I guess. What's the deadline? What's the drop dead date? Do these projects either have to start or be completed that we're facing right now?
So my understanding, and I'm going to let Jacob weigh in, is it's not a drop dead date where things disappear. It's a formula where there's a review at a certain point, and it's based on the formula is the unencumbered funds at that point. But I'm going to, not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. We talked about this today. So
Thanks.
So I think it's early August. I can't remember the exact date, but it would be, I want to say August 8th, 2027, that funds theoretically would need to be spent. And of course, we've gone back and forth with the bond bank and bond council about, well, what if things run over here? I mean, sometimes construction projects run over, and basically what they've said is, let us know, we'll do what we can to work with you. There was some stuff, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on it, but that theoretically, if governments borrow money, there's some stuff in there where they're not supposed to be making, interest higher at what it would be. We did not invest the bond the first year because I think there was some hesitation and kind of some understanding that we were gonna get things moving, and then, you know, PCBs and delays happened. So we didn't invest the bond the first year, and it's now invested. We got invested last year, but there might be some stuff that we avoid some arbitrage because we delayed investing the bond. But of course, like, you know, the bond bank would need to do their assessment, which would cost $500. And then depending on the amounts and some other very complex calculations that they've said, it might cost more.
Last question is, I think, yeah, you didn't put it up here, but you talked about something like $10 million worth of projects in this building that you see on the horizon.
So those projects that I alluded to are, I've done this so much, it's the north stairs and stormwater.
You don't have to go back through them, but the number's not out of range. It's about $10 million, right? Okay. My question is, you're over the next couple months, you're going to have the engineer develop alternatives and costing, and then the state has to say something about what we want to pursue. Is there any likelihood at all that we will start spending that $10 million only to find out that the decision on the building in total is that we're going to go a different way? Are we going to put a sprinkler system in and then demolish that wing of the building?
No, that's why I'm not doing it now.
Okay.
That's why those have a separate category. Sprinklers, the fire alarms, the architectural improvements, the theater. That is work that I started back when the bond was first approved. We did some of the initial engineering. That's why we know that we need another water line. But it would not be reasonable to start installing a sprinkler until you all decide how we're going to deal with the PCB problem.
Right.
So it's it's not quite a catch-22, it's like a catch-21, where I know that we need to have these projects planned, and I know that we're under the gun to commit the funds, and it would not be prudent to commit until we understand the impact of the ECA. Does that answer your question?
Perfectly.
Not hold off. If it were up to me, we'd be rolling, but we can't.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have questions. For the 2 oil burner redundant system,
Yep.
basically if one fails, the other one will cover
Not
or
quite.
limp along.
No, that's not quite how it works. So the existing oil boiler that would stay there, will stay there. We put a whole new front end on it. It's fine. The oil pump problem we have has been remedied. And the reason for the 2 oil boilers as opposed to 1, and not to get too deep in the weeds, but one of the reasons why it's number 2 oil as opposed to something else is this is a big building with a lot of single glazed windows. It's a hard building to heat, and we need the recovery. We need to be able to heat this building in a hurry and stabilize it because, you know, unlike your super insulated single family home, we're not operating at peak efficiency. So the reason why we would have those 2 is so that we can operate them in kind of a lead lag to maximize efficiency.
Okay.
We'll run all 3 when we need to. We'll run 1 when we don't.
Okay.
So Ottaquiche has 3 boilers for that reason. We can heat the building with one. On the worst day,
When we need a
ramp
little
up
extra
and-
kick.
Correct.
Okay. And then I just wanted to cover, because I don't think people know, for the annual cost for number 2 oil compared to green wood chips. Could you cover that a little bit?
The cost of green wood chips. I wouldn't be comfortable saying right out of the chute, except I will tell you the cost of green wood chips this year was 0 because the thing didn't work. So.
Because why?
Because we didn't use the green wood chips. And when we do use it, I'm thinking about Mitch right now. If he was sitting here, the size that would be coming out of him. We spend a lot of time keeping that thing running.
Yep.
So there's some cost that's hard to capture. For me, though, the biggest factor in that boiler room is the simple fact that green wood chip biofuel boiler vents out of the same chimney as the number 2 oil boiler. And it has since 1995, and it wasn't okay in 1995, it's not okay now, so we're not gonna keep doing it. Even if we kept a green wood chip boiler, the estimate that I didn't even ask them to put on paper was $250,000 to $400,000 to make it compliant, not even work well. So I didn't spend a whole lot of time going down that road. If there's a desire to engage engineers to really drill into it, we can.
Nope. That's all I got.
All right. Okay, well,
Any
thank
other
you all.
questions?
Thank you, John.
If it's okay,
Thank you, Jonathan.
I'm gonna
Appreciate
take
it.
off.
Okay.
All right, thank
Yeah,
you.
get all that stuff together tonight, would you?
I'm on.
May I offer a couple of notes about a couple of things that were mentioned in terms of communication? One thing, just for the board to know, is that we are working on totally revamping our website. So we just had a meeting with our Director of Technology just this afternoon, and we are moving forward with a new website. But obviously, there's a lot of groundwork that an infrastructure build that needs to go into that. So it's going to take a while to transfer, but that is on the horizon, so stay tuned. And the other thing is that we have been contracting with Tessa Johnson to help us with some PR work and communications. So anytime there are updates, we have been trying to get into the habit of feeding those to Tessa, and then she gets them out onto the listserv, our social media accounts, into the district newsletter, and of course, updated on the website. So just a couple of notes for you all to know how we're trying to overcome some of the challenges with communication.
Okay. Thank you again, Jonathan. Appreciate the work that you're doing on this. School year 26-27 calendar revisions presented by Katie Sutton, our superintendent.
Thank you. So as the board or the board members who have been with us, for the new board members, just to provide a little bit of context, we did bring this calendar to the board on several occasions, 3 different occasions so far this year. And after we brought it forward the last time, we received some concerns after our in-service day on Martin Luther King Day Jr. about having worked on that day. And so that's when that convergence of intent and impact clashed, and we recognized that we needed to make sure that we revert back to that day being recognized for everyone in the community. So the change that you're going to see tonight reverts back to previous practice of not holding school for students or staff on Martin Luther King Day, which is the 18th of January. And that is going to shift our in-service days to the following 2 days. So the next day being the full pre-K through 12 in-service day, and then the 20th being the 9 through 12 in-service day that Hartford High School uses for the semester changeover. And the other change that, that impacts the calendar is that we'll move our last day of school to a little further out, 1 day further out. The last student day would then be June 15th, which is a Tuesday, which is actually better in many ways because obviously we're most likely, it's unusual for us not to have a snow day. And so it will actually probably make for either a full or almost full week, that last week that we're in session in June. So the timing of that we didn't see as being a barrier, but wanted to bring this back to the board for review, discussion, for us to answer any questions that you might have about these changes, and to move forward with hopefully your approval so that we can get this distributed as soon as possible.
Does the board have any questions at all?
Does this work for the HACTC?
Yes, it's still in line with all of our sending schools. Yep,
That's my only question.
thank you.
Katie,
Go ahead.
is there a key somewhere on this page that I'm not seeing that indicates what the colors mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. There is a key that is not here. So the blue are our in-service days. The orange, so let's take August, for example.
First day.
The orange is our first day and our last day. And then the red is when we're not in session.
Or a late start.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any further questions from the board? Do I hear a motion to approve this calendar?
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And it is approved, Katie.
Thank you.
Of course. Policy work approval F1, B2, volunteers, work study students, and student teachers.
I'm assuming that's me.
I think that would be you.
Let's see. My issue is I cannot remember when it was last warned because I would like to announce that.
Oh, I think I did that on February 4th when you weren't
January
here.
February 4th? Okay. Motion to approve policy F1B2 volunteers, work study students, and student teachers, first warned February 4th.
Do I hear a motion?
Yes, that was my motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Do I hear a second?
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay.
And this
And
will
the motion
also
carries.
serve as our warning of policy C5, firearms, which is included in your packet. Then you're up.
And BSR5, monitoring superintendent performance. Cathy, that's you.
This is a board monitoring report. BSR5, monitoring the superintendent performance. Monitoring method, a direct inspection. This policy states that systematic and rigorous monitoring of superintendent job performance will be solely against the expected superintendent job outputs, organizational accomplishment of board policies on ends and organizational operation within the boundaries established in board policies on executive limitations. And then I'll read each one individually for compliance status. So the board interprets this policy to mean that superintendent performance is evaluated exclusively through demonstrated compliance with board-adopted ends policies and executive limitations policies. For the first, number one, monitoring is simply to determine the degree to which the board policies are being met. Information that does not do this will not be considered to be monitoring information. I found us to be in compliance. The board will acquire monitoring information by one or more of these three methods: by internal report, in which the superintendent discloses interpretations and compliance information to the board; by external report, in which an external disinterested third party selected by the board assesses compliance with board policies; or C, by direct board inspection, in which a designated member or members of the board assess compliance with the appropriate policy criteria. In compliance, in every case, the board will judge A, the reasonableness of the superintendent's interpretation, and B, whether data demonstrate accomplishment of the interpretation and compliance. And number 4, in every case, the standard for compliance shall be any reasonable superintendent interpretation of the board policy being monitored. The board is the final arbiter of reasonableness, but will always judge with a reasonable person test rather than with interpretations favored by board members or by the board as a whole in compliance. Number 5, all policies that instruct the superintendent will be monitored at a frequency and by the method chosen by the board. The board can monitor any policy at any time by any method, but will ordinarily depend on a routine schedule. That one I found us to be in substantial compliance. And evidence of compliance performance, the key indicators were the board follows an annual work plan that outlines when superintendent-related policies will be reviewed and monitored. The superintendent provides information tied to specific board policies, and the board reviews that information to determine whether those policies are being met. The board conducts a formal annual evaluation of the superintendent each June based on policy compliance and monitoring completed throughout the year. For the explanation of exception or area needing improvement, the board has adopted a monitoring schedule outlining the frequency and method for policies that instruct the superintendent. Some policies are monitored annually, some quarterly, some include external review, and one includes a direct inspection. And while annual monitoring occurs as scheduled, some monitoring reports have not consistently aligned with the adopted calendar. So next steps, the board will review the monitoring calendar to ensure scheduled months accurately reflect current practice and meeting cycles.
Thank you.
That is my report.
Good report. Do we need to make a motion on that one? Don't do that, do we? I don't think so. All right, GP 7 Board Committee Principals. Jeremy, back to you.
All right, this will be the monitoring report for GP7 Board Committee Principals. It will be submitted today, 3/4/2026. Monitoring methods were internal report and direct inspection. The policy statement is the board committees and liaisons with non-board committees when used will be assigned so as to reinforce the wholeness of the board's job and so as never to interfere with delegation from board to superintendent. Accordingly, 1, board committees are to help the board do its job, not to help or advise the staff. Committees ordinarily will assist the board by preparing policy alternatives and implications for board deliberation. In keeping with the board's broader focus, board committees will normally not have direct dealings with current staff operations. Board committees may not speak or act for the board except when formally given such authority for specific and time-limited purposes. Expectations and authority will be carefully stated in order not to conflict with the authority delegated to the superintendent. Board committees cannot exercise authority over staff because the superintendent works for the full board. He or she will not be required to obtain the approval of the board committee before an executive action. Board committees are to avoid over-identification with organizational parts rather than the whole. Therefore, a board committee that has helped the board create policy on some topic will not be used to monitor organizational performance on that same subject. 5, committees will be sparingly and ordinarily in an ad hoc capacity. 6, this policy applies to any group that is formed by board action, whether or not it is called a committee and regardless of whether the group includes board members. It does not apply to committees formed under the authority of the superintendent. My interpretation of this policy is as defining the role of board committees and ensures that they support but not undermine the authority of the entire board or the superintendent. It prevents committees from interfering with the board's delegation of authority to the superintendent and ensures that the board's role is separate from that of the superintendent. For the compliance status, under the first section, board committees are to help the board do its job, not to help or advise the staff. Committees ordinarily will assist the board by preparing policy alternatives, implications for board deliberation. In keeping with the board's broader focus, board committees will normally not have direct dealings with current staff operations in compliance. Second, Board committees may not speak or act for the board except when formally given such authority for specific and time-limited purposes. Expectations and authority will be carefully stated in order to not conflict with authority delegated to the superintendent in compliance. Board committees cannot exercise authority over staff because the superintendent works for the full board. He or she will not be required to obtain the approval of a board committee before an executive action in compliance. Board committees are to avoid over-identification with organizational parts rather than the whole. Therefore, a board committee that has helped the board create policy on some topic will not be used to monitor organizational performance on that same subject in compliance. Committees will be used sparingly and ordinarily in an ad hoc capacity in compliance. Last section is the policy applies to any group that is formed by board action, whether or not it is called a committee, and regardless of whether the group includes board members. It does not apply to committees formed under the authority of the superintendent in compliance. The evidence of the compliance and performance is based on board meetings, agendas, and meeting minutes. There are no explanation of exceptions, but next steps are inventory and review all current board committees to confirm that 1, the purpose is clearly defined, and 2, that they are not supervising or directing staff, and retire committees that are no longer necessary.
Okay, thank you. Now we go into the public comment section.
Nancy,
Oh, sorry. Yes,
before you
sir.
proceed,
Yes, sir.
I'm not understanding this policy work section. Do we not approve any of this, any of these 4 items?
No, that we do not have to make that is, Jeremy, you're going to explain this better than I am, I'm sure, but I'll give it a shot. When we set up our work plan, all of our policies will be monitored in that time frame. Each board member are given different policies to monitor themselves, and they bring that in front of the board, and unless someone has a big concern or a big disagreement with the monitoring report, then we just accept the reports.
But you're not accepting the report, you're just going by without taking any action. That's what you're saying is accepting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm a little bit concerned with, not with the first 2. They're just in process at this point. But the monitoring the superintendent performance and the board committee principals, one board member has taken each of these off and determined what the answers to the questions would be and placed performance in certain boxes rather than other boxes. And it seems to me, and this is not a criticism of the superintendent's performance or the work that Cathy did compiling this report, it's just somebody that's new and confused. I don't know all the policies that come into play. I know policy governance. I don't know the policies that this board has adopted. I don't know what was behind this monitoring report, what other policies were looked at to determine in compliance or substantive compliance or substantial compliance. And I'd like to ask some questions about that. And I don't think it's appropriate to ask those questions in a public session because it eventually is going to get down to questions and explicit answers about superintendent performance. And I think we ought to have the opportunity to have that kind of a session before we casually accept this report and go on by it. Again, this isn't a criticism of anybody. I'm kind of thinking I don't like the process, and I'm going to speak up at this point so we don't get too far along and somebody says, well, you liked it for the first 6 months you were on the board. What happened?
Jeremy, would you like to reply to all of that for me?
Sure. No, I
Me,
would.
please.
I'm going to throw this under, this is the way that I think that it's always been done, so I would welcome any feedback or criticism or change to existing ways, because I think one of the things that we're also solving for is a lot of these policies and monitoring minutes have not been updated since
A long time.
a long time. Yeah, I was
and
gonna
it-
say, I
and
don't
if-
know a good way to put it. So we're really scrambling for policy work and not necessarily the monitoring piece of it. We're scrambling to get current, I think.
Carver would have you looking at pretty much all policies on an annual basis to refresh them where they need to be refreshed.
And thankfully, we have the VSBA that we can lean on for their model policies, because without that, we would be completely,
Right.
And we
I-
did have an audit last year.
yeah.
I would share that
Their policies.
the Policy Governance Board I served on in Wisconsin went into much greater detail in closed sessions before they generated a monitoring report such as the one for superintendent performance. And I guess I'd like to move the board to something more like that rather than simply accept the report that I can't defend. I don't know what caused Cathy to say in compliance rather than substantial compliance. I'd like to know that. And I may have some information that would yield even a different result than that. I don't, but I could. How do I get my feelings reflected in the report that she generated?
I would refer, yeah, so that's an interesting take, because if you and Cathy go in, the rest of us can't. So that's the fun part of open meeting law. And so, and this is where I'm new and I'm still learning my way around. Is that an executive session that we call?
Well, it's not going to make me happy if you assign me to be Cathy's buddy on this and the two of us come up with these answers.
I think you just volunteered. No, I'm
No,
just kidding.
I did, I most certainly did not.
No, I know.
I think it's probably the entire board in a closed session talking about, I don't think it's a problem necessarily that Cathy has gone off and come up with her take on superintendent performance. But I think we deserve the opportunity to hear what was going through her mind when she put those X's in certain boxes. And I certainly don't want to be supporting her work if I completely disagree with it, or I just don't understand where she's coming from. I think we deserve the opportunity to hear what went into that report. That's not an illegal quorum, that's the whole board in a closed session tearing into this thing and finding out what it is that caused her to respond the way she did. Again, no criticism of what you're doing right now, but I'm not a person that just simply says, it's how we always did it, and we're gonna keep doing it that way.
I'm happy to have some new talent here. So I'm welcome to new ways.
I mean, I'm happy to answer your questions.
I don't want to ask my questions here.
Well, I think you might be misinterpreting what we're trying to do here. This is monitoring this superintendent's performance report. This is not actually monitoring the that happens in our annual evaluation of the superintendent. However, we have a work plan here with all of the policies. I can go back to agendas and board meetings and see when Caty has also done her executive limitations monitoring with her reports, and that's where I said we were in substantial compliance, because we have, under this policy, there is an adopted schedule, and some of these things don't align. Some of them aren't happening at the frequency, but it's all happening. And the key indicators is where I show support for why I feel these are in compliance.
Within the next month, also, we already have a training set up with policy governance. And maybe that will be a really good time for us to go over this with the instructor that's going to be working with the entire board, and so that everybody fully understands it.
Okay,
Will that work for you?
well, it's a start. A couple of you have mentioned a work plan. I'm not
that we did
aware
at our
of a
annual
work-
board meeting, or our annual board retreat back in August. And we put together a work plan of when these policies would all be reviewed.
Okay.
They're all dated. You can see here, 3-4. Here's the BSR monitoring report that was assigned to me. And here is Jeremy's GP7 board commitment.
And is that on the website?
Well, the policies are all on the
No.
website.
Is the work plan published somewhere? You're asking me to sign up to support a work plan that I've never seen and didn't know existed.
You weren't on the.
Welcome to the Harvard
This
School
is your
District.
first meeting.
And Colin, I can share that with both you and Daniel so that you have the access to it.
Okay.
But this is what we developed at our annual board retreat.
It never existed before, Colin. There was no plan. There was no,
And this is a template that was devised so that all of our monitoring reports would be consistent.
the,
I hope you all understand, I'm not going out of my way to be obnoxious or critical of what you've done in the past. I just have some ideas about how we might proceed.
and we would welcome them
Absolutely.
because a lot of this is brand new.
Nancy, I did see VSBA is doing a 6 or 8 month, one night a month session on policy governance that starts in September.
Mm-hmm. It's completely free to you. You can sign up.
It's free,
online.
it's for $450 for the whole board, and it says registration is already closed. But the lead into it says this is ideal for new board members elected in now. So,
I will have to look into that.
yeah.
May I? That is the policy governance meeting we've been going to once a month.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's
we've
what we're
already
talking
paid
about.
that $450, and that would be something that yourself and Daniel could now take
Yeah,
advantage of.
each board
That
member
all the
can go
board
to it.
members.
Yes, all
Right.
board members. It won't cost us any more, just that one-time fee.
Well, but it's all over, I think, for this year, isn't it? Or it's close to being
No,
over.
we've got another one coming up. My calendar. Don't we have?
We
It was
just
last week.
had one
It was
last week.
Are there any other sources of guidance on policy governance, either on the VSBA website or elsewhere? Or, next question, is there a intro packet from?
Yes, you will be getting.
Not from VSBA, but does the district have an onboarding package?
No.
Are you going to meet with Daniel and me, superintendent and board chair perhaps, to bring us up to speed on everything that's going on?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, absolutely.
sorry to get you in the,
But we could not do it until tonight.
yeah,
I mean, that's,
I get that.
okay? Yeah, yes, we will be. Any further questions or comments?
No, I'm done.
All right, now we'll go to the public comment. The board welcomes public comments in order to accommodate as many community member voices as possible. Anyone making a comment will be given 2 minutes to speak. This is not a time for discussion, but the board is interested in hearing comments, concerns, and suggestions from the public. We ask that you come up to the microphone. If you would like to speak, please give us your name, and then you have your 2 minutes.
Someone online has raised their hand, but I can start, I suppose.
I can't see it. Somebody got their hand raised?
I'll start,
Go ahead.
for the sake of time.
And we'll
Liz
take
Bunnell.
the next, we'll go back and forth
Okay, perfect.
between online and
I'm
off.
Liz Bunnell. Many of you may be familiar with me from our last board meeting and the candidate night. I am in Quechee, and I have 2 children at the Ottaquechee School and one who has moved on from the Ottaquechee School. First, thank you all for the service you give to our community. When I'm hearing these conversations, particularly about buildings and boilers, it's all overwhelming, so I commend you for the work that you're doing. It's a lot, so thank you, thank you. Daniel and Colin, thank you for stepping up to serve on the board. I very much appreciate it. So when the budget came up, I'll just start with this. When the budget came up for vote yesterday, I seriously considered voting no. which I'm sure is shocking to hear, especially as a parent with children in the school. And it's not because I support cuts or instability, and not because I don't support our teachers and our educators, but because, to Colin's point earlier, I truly struggled to see in the budget presentation a clearly articulated strategy connecting our spending with any improvements to our academic outcomes, and in particular, safer classrooms. When I was here last month, we talked a lot about safety concerns at OQS that are ongoing, and it's not improving. And like I said, those concerns at OQS regarding safety remain unresolved. So ultimately, I did vote yes. That was out of concern that a failed budget would create financial instability. I would imagine us getting back together, cutting jobs. I don't want that to happen. But I want to be clear that a yes vote from me and from other families that I've spoken to is not an endorsement for status quo. Many of us are still looking for a clear plan forward, particularly from, what is this? How is this budget going to improve academic outcomes in our district? Moving on from that, in terms of a larger strategy for the district, when it comes to OQS in particular, and you remember us all showing up here last month, we do not feel that our concerns have been fully addressed. A collective letter was submitted on the night of that board meeting, and it had since been emailed to the board, and we have not received a formal written response to our broader school community. Communication about behavioral incidents has increased. That was something that we demanded of our principal, and we are now getting those emails, which we acknowledge is a good step forward. However, the frequency of those emails about violent outbursts and situations at our school just underscores the seriousness of what students are experiencing on a day-to-day at our school. In response to all of the concerns about safety at our school, our principal talked a lot about PBIS, which we've learned through discussions is not fully implemented at our school. I understand DBS has a gold standard and OQS has no rating at all. Rebecca Lallier toured the school a couple weeks ago to do an assessment of OQS. We have yet to see any of the findings from those tours and those reports. And again, while all this is happening, we're still getting emails about incidents, unsafe things happening at our school. We're now at a point where families are making tough decisions at OQS. Since winter alone, 2 of my children's friends, their families have decided to pull them out of OQS. And just this week, I heard of another parent who's pulling their 5th grader mid-year to go to another school out of concern for their safety at the school. So I know you are a governance board. I've heard that loud and clear, but I have a couple of questions that I'm hoping you can answer. It doesn't feel good sending our kids to school at Ottaquechee every day. So I'm hoping I'm going to frame these questions in a way that we can get some answers. At what point do declining academic performance and ongoing behavioral or safety incidents trigger formal board-level intervention? And where does OQS fall in that spectrum? We've now raised so many concerns, submitted a letter, families have come forth. We've had one-to-one meetings with Caty, which I appreciate the amount of time she is putting in to talk to all of us, but there's been no formal communication to the larger group that signed that letter. And that brings me to my next question. When should we expect a formal collective response to the concerns that were submitted? Either in the form of a all-school meeting with someone from the district or the superintendent. Everything has been piecemeal at this point. We're getting really only broad communication from our principal, which, from the last time we were here, we have serious concerns regarding leadership. It doesn't feel good that that's where the messaging is coming from right now. That's it for me. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry. Can we do, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Who is it? Can you see him?
I cannot multi that person.
they unmuted?
Maria, I
Hello?
think you're good.
Can you hear me well?
We can.
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the great discussion. I think it's hugely valuable for us. I'll go straight to the point. I echo some of the words that Liz just mentioned about OQS. I also have two kids and also two younger ones that probably will ended up in OQS. So I have a long journey with the school and I do care about the community. I'm one of the parents who also signed that letter presented to the board in February. And I do worry. The issues are still ongoing. I'll probably say they're getting worse. We raised a lot of concerns about academic decline, staff retention, safety issues. And I would like to, if possible, see more transparency into what actions are we taking, if we have taken any actions and better communication at that point. So I just wanted to support the comments mentioned about that at OKS and see if there's any possibility to have more transparency on the path going forward.
Thank you, Maria. Jacob?
Hello, Anise Mallinson. I am the parent of one kiddo at OQS and one recent OQS grad who's at HMMS. I'd like to follow up on policy B22 from the last board meeting and inquire if the board has had a chance to consider the requirement of the current policy that the subject of the complaint be present in executive session should the board accept an appeal to hear a complaint in executive session. And if you aren't able to answer now, a follow-up email I would appreciate. As Maria and Liz have mentioned tonight, we continue to be highly concerned with the state of OQS and the market safety concerns that persist. Every time we think these safety concerns can't get worse, we are saddened, disheartened, and scared to hear that they have. Our child came home every night the week before break, telling us about verbal and physical violence that he had seen. During that time, we, as the parents of this child, only received communication from the OQS leader once for one of the events. That email came at 4:54 p.m., far after we had already picked up an upset and scared child from that building. Repeated exposure to violence, even as a bystander, is well recognized as a traumatic adverse childhood experience. Major longitudinal and population health research studies have repeatedly demonstrated that adverse childhood experiences negatively affect physical and mental health, stress physiology, risk for substance use disorders, risk for future interpersonal violence, and academic trajectory in a dose-response relationship. Childhood adversity is one of the strongest population-level predictors of adult health outcomes, comparable in magnitude to major biomedical risk factors. The dose of exposure for OQS children is continuing to rise. We have raised these major concerns repeatedly, and we have not seen meaningful change. The leader of the building has repeatedly told us that processes are being updated and we're taking care of it. At what point does the safety of the children in the building take priority over giving the building's leader a chance to update processes and work on communication skills? Jonathan Garthwaite said it beautifully earlier tonight, we need to move forward in a way that doesn't repeat the past. I, along with other OQS parents that are interested in joining, would like to formally appeal to the board to hear a personnel complaint as per policy B22. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jonathan?
It's very nice to be on this side of the table for tonight. And for those in Zoom land, I'm Jacob Azina, your Director of Finance. But I would just want to give out some thank yous tonight. First to Lisa O'Neill and the rest of the people at the town that helped with all the voting stuff. I would like to give a special shout out and thank you to our school and town meeting committee. This was, again, the first year that we've had an actual committee, and boy, was it a heavy lift off our shoulders, so a huge thank you to them. And then finally, I just want to thank our taxpayers for passing the budget for FY27. In my 7 years here, this was probably the toughest budget that I've had to develop, and I know there's a lot of uncertainty both at the federal level and the state level. And as we kind of navigate Act 73, I think it's going to be very important that, we all work together, because I think we all want the best education for our kids. And we have a very tough road ahead of us, so just thank you to our taxpayers.
Thank you, Jacob. Anyone else?
Good evening, Sean Kelly, Queechee. So I'm here to reiterate what has already been stated, bring to the forefront the letter that we sent the board, or handed to the board at the last meeting. So a bunch of stuff has been talked about in terms of communication and the website and this, that, and the other. So I totally agree with Colin in terms of making it more transparent. I'll also say this. So specifically to Ottaquechee, we've talked a lot about the discipline and just seems to be lack thereof. And I brought to the attention of the principal the current website for Ottaquechee under the PBIS page lists folks that are not even at the school anymore. So to know that this is now a focal point and we can't update a simple web page, like it's a message that's not being well received. So that's just one point I'd like to make. I talked about pause the last time I was here, and that's Ottaquechee's motto. So it's practice safety. That's the first thing that we talk about. Act responsibly, work to learn, show respect. We can't even follow our motto. That's what's happening at this school. It's disheartening, and I'm actually really upset that I have to stand here and talk about it. The mission statement for the school at Ottaquechee, we believe that in order to lead productive and satisfying lives, our students must develop a full complement of lifelong skills, social, emotional, and physical and academic. As a community of learners, we build our sense of belonging and social responsibility by supporting safe and healthy school climate, advocating learning for all students and adults. We value and emphasize academic and social skills. We are proud of our school's safe and respectful school climate and the expected use of appropriate social skills by everyone. Within this context, as a learning community, we have adopted common instructional goals and specific strategies to improve student learning. It is our priority. That's on the website. That's what we are supposed to be doing, and we're not doing it. It's really upsetting. This board has to make decisions and it has to act. The time for these kids is passing us by. As adults, it's like a flash as time goes by. But as for these kids, it seems like the year goes on forever. But we know as adults it's not happening. We need to act faster. Give me 1 second because I want to read something else. The motto for the district. The mission of the Hartford School District is to provide and ensure a caring and dynamic learning community where the intellectual development of our students is the highest priority. It is not the highest priority right now. We need to do better as a community. I don't know what else and how else to explain the situation at OQS. It is not good and it needs to be corrected. I'll end with this. I'm curious as to why the board's bringing up firearms as a policy. Why is that all of a sudden coming up?
It's a standard policy as required.
And we didn't have a policy before that?
We do, it's just outdated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Anyone else? Do we have anyone on with a hand raised? Okay, thank you. Hello.
I just want to,
You can pull that down.
why is it, oh.
There we go.
I just want to say thank you. I'm trying to be more like civically involved, and I want to thank you, congratulate you two, and thank you all for, I'm trying to be more positive and thoughtful, and so I just want to thank you all for doing what you do, and I also wanted to just offer, if you need any consultation with bullying issues, that's part of my job at HMMS, and we will have kids coming up to 6th grade, so I would be happy, I go talk to them about vaping prevention in the spring. I would be happy to help, as if I'm not doing enough, but anyway, I would be happy to help in any way ease that transition, because it is drastic when kids come, they come from 3 very different schools and then meet at the middle school, and it's very apparent they're coming from 3 very different schools. So anything we can do to make that transition better, I'd be happy to help, and you're doing a great job, thank you.
Will you tell us who you are, please?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you.
Okay, Jeanette Sharkey Potter from White River, and my kids have gone to OQS, they've gone to White River, they've gone to the middle school, they're now in the high school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Can't see through the thing over here, but there's no one else? Okay, thank you very much. We thank you all very much for coming tonight, and we thank you for your comments. We have got them down, and we will take them all into consideration. And we do hear you. We truly do. Okay? Our consent agenda. Katie, are there any appointments, resignations, or retirements?
We have 2 appointments.
Woo-hoo.
William McDonald has been nominated to be a school counselor at the Hartford Memorial Middle School. And as the board knows, we've been undergoing 3 different searches for principals in the district. And the hiring committee of the Dothan-Brook School Principal Search has nominated Vincent Mascola as the next principal at Dothan-Brook School.
Thank you. Okay, next are the meeting minutes from 2/4/26 to 2/3/6/26. 2/28/26. Are there any changes or amendments for any of those 3 meetings?
Yes, I have a suggested edit to the minutes for 2/23. I have them on unwritten paper. What's the best way to present those?
Just go ahead and read them.
Okay. Could we edit the copy on page 4 to correct my statement? I'd like it to read, Mr. Shapiro stated, started with a story of how 10 years ago Vermont students were performing among the best in the country, and now 4th graders are reading below the national average. Meanwhile, Mississippi leaped into the top 10 in 4th grade reading while spending about half as much per pupil as Vermont. He has 2 students in the district and today advises businesses to run more efficiently. We need Montpelier to listen to us. Let's support our teachers, making sure buildings are safe and our students are getting the education they deserve.
Okay, is that all? Okay. You got it, Kate? Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda with the corrections from Daniel?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Oh, motion carries. Our next board,
We have
oh, we got
executive
an
session.
executive session. Have you got the terms?
I have the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move that the board find that discussion of labor relations agreements with employees falls within the exception of the open meeting law under 1 VSA 313A1, such as discussion would involve confidential labor relation matters and premature public disclosure could place the board at a substantial disadvantage in negotiations and adversely affect the interests of the public body. We would also like to invite the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and director of finance, Jacob Zena, into the session.
Second?
All in favor to go in executive session as read?
Aye.
That's
Aye.
to find, yep, aye. That's to find cause for the motion. We still got one more after that, Nancy, to go into.
Okay.
I move that the board enter executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1 to discuss labor relations agreements with employees as premature public disclosure of the matters to be discussed would clearly place the board at a substantial disadvantage. Enter
Second.
at
And you have a second?
7:46.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay. You are more than welcome to sit out here, but we, go ahead, what?
I got it.
7:46.
Analogy I have to use to come out of executive session. We all set?
We're going to do something.
Okay, we have come out of executive session at 9:05 with no action taken. Do I hear a motion to, I don't have to vote on that, do I? No. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
You do not need a second for that motion, and we are adjourned.